Hello and welcome to the MB Om podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the MBM podcast. I'm super excited to dive into today's topic, but just quickly before we get into it, I just wanted to remind everyone that I'm currently in the process of launching a new aspect to MBM, which is a coaching aspect. It's something that I've dreamed of having since I first started MBM over a year ago, and I'm really excited to be doing this now. Something that you may or may not know as a listener is that outside of creating MBM, I also am a coach for a company that is an educational startup based out of the US called Praxis. And it's something that I never really saw myself doing, but over the last almost year of doing it, I've really fallen in love with helping other people discover their passions. So as a process of launching this, I'm offering 30-minute sessions with myself, and you can book those at mbomyoga.youcanbook.me. There is a link on the website at www.mbomyoga.com. And of course, there'll be a link on the show notes for this episode on social media. So if you haven't listened to Marketing Part 1 and Part 2, I would highly recommend that you go back and listen to those. Part 1 was on, do I need a website? And Part 2 was, do I need to be on social media? And so Part 2 is definitely relevant to this continued conversation. It's sort of the direct second part to the conversation that we had last week about social media. And I started the conversation on, do I need to be on social media, really with prefacing that I've held off on talking about social media basically the entire time that I've had MBM, just because it's really not a black and white topic. It's really, really much more complicated than that. And today's topic is another one like that, how to be authentic on social media. There's no one answer I can give you. There's no one right answer, because being authentic really means being true to you. So once you've decided what platforms you want to be on, it's about allowing your brand and the voice of your brand to come through. So something that I like to think about with this is, what is the voice of your brand? Is it you, or is it something different? And this was probably my biggest struggle when I split apart my Instagram account, my personal Instagram account, with Mastering the Business of Yoga. I find that it's really, really easy to hop on Instagram under Amanda Kingsmith and to just write the things that I'm feeling, the things I'm doing. I don't really think twice about what people are thinking about. I just write from the position of where I am, or I think of a sassy, cute little comment that kind of represents my personality. When I started MBOM's Instagram account, I was a little bit stumped as to what the voice of MBOM is. I was like, is it me, or is it something different? It seems like it should be something more formal and not as conversational as I am on social media, yet it's me behind the phone writing it, and it's hard to figure that out. So if that's something that you've been struggling with, know that you're not alone. It's taken me close to 100 posts to kind of figure out where I want to take that social media account and the things that I want to talk about on it. Something that I would really recommend with finding your voice is practice. So don't just give up because you feel awkward. It is awkward. It's awkward to start writing kind of differently than you talk, or maybe if you don't put yourself out that much, to put yourself out there in a really raw, real way. The other thing that I would advise is read what other people who you really admire are writing. Like, go to accounts on whatever social media platform you choose and look at what other people are putting out there, what types of photos, what types of comments, what types of articles they're sharing, if it's Facebook or Twitter. Just go and look and see what other people are doing and gather some ideas. I don't think you should directly copy them, because that kind of makes it more about what they're doing instead of what you're doing, but just gather ideas as to things that you could share. So something I did when I first started MBOM's Facebook page is I looked at what the Yoga Lounge, my home studio, a studio I've worked for a number of years. It's the studio that Jeff Ma owns and runs. He's been on the podcast twice. I love that studio. So I went and looked, like, who are they targeting on Facebook? What types of articles are they resharing? What types of people are they following as their Facebook page? What types of stuff are they sharing with the people who are following along with them? And I don't share the exact same stuff as them, but it just gave me an idea as to, okay, what is a yoga studio sharing? Another one was Westside Yoga based out of Atlanta. I've had a couple teachers who teach there on the podcast. It's a studio that I know and love. And I just looked at, what types of photos are they sharing? What types of things are they talking about on their account? And I'm not a yoga studio, so I obviously share really different things, but just it helps to get an idea for what other people are doing and helps you to decide, okay, I don't want to do that, or I do want to do this. So that's something that once you figured out what platforms you want to be on, I would highly recommend. And just continue to practice playing around with different ways of talking, different ways of structuring your posts, different photos, and see what feels really good to you. And then also what your audience is kind of picking up on. Another point for being organic on, or for being authentic on social media, is allow your followers to be organic. Obviously you can choose to grow your following in whatever way you want, but if you want to come across as authentic, I would strongly encourage that you allow it to be organic. So an inorganic following would be buying lists. So, that could be buying email lists, buying Instagram followers, buying Facebook likes. You can pay for all of that stuff to make yourself look better. I think though it looks a lot better if you just have, 150 people following you, yet you post a photo that they really love and 100 people engage with it. That's massive. That's way, way, way better than if you've purchased a list of 25,000 people and 100 people like it. It's essentially the same because it's more about the engagement. I'm never looking to just talk about how many people follow me on Instagram. I would way rather have people engaging with the things I'm saying, people who are like, yes, I love what you do, or people who are giving me feedback or constructive criticism. So obviously think about what's going to be best for you, but I think that in most cases having an organic following is the best. Another way to be authentic is to not do the whole follow, unfollow, auto commenting. There's a lot of different companies that you can pay, a lot of different services that you can get that will go and look at like your ratio for how many people you follow versus how many people follow you. And they'll, automatically unfollow people. They'll go auto comment based on hashtags that you set. Like there's bots that will just go do this. And if you're already on Instagram, you probably know what this looks like. It's like the thumbs up or the nice or, I love your profile, like something that feels very like disingenuous and also a lot of times doesn't even like work with what you're saying. It's people who have pay for companies who search for hashtags and then go auto comment on them, or they auto like, or they auto follow, but then they unfollow later if you don't engage with their profile. And that stuff works. It gets followers. And if you're looking to proclaim how many followers you have or use that to get free stuff or something like that, then perhaps it might work. But I think the best way to maintain your authenticity and allow people to see that there's really a person behind the screen is to not engage with that. I am a big believer in unfollowing profiles that I'm disinterested in or that don't post regularly or that don't post stuff that I believe in. I like to follow people who are interesting and who post interesting content. I like to comment on things when I'm genuinely engaged with it, genuinely interested. I don't really have any interest in setting up a bot to just go around and put the thumbs up sign on different people in hopes that they might, find out about MBOM. And I think that it comes down to what you want out of your business. I'm not looking to create a business has a ton of followers. I would rather have people who are genuinely interested in what I'm doing, genuinely interested in the business of yoga and learning alongside me. So look at what you want with that and decide what's going to be best for you that way. And so something that I think is really important to mention with this is that sometimes it's a lot harder to build your following if you're going to do it organically. So if you're not going to buy followers or buy lists or do a follow unfollow program, your following is going to increase slower. So if you're not buying likes on Facebook, how many people like your page is going to go up a lot slower. And you have to do a little bit more work with this. So having some sort of automatic program do it is like a quick and fast and cheap way to get your social media a lot bigger. I think that it's worth it to take, that time that we talked about last week. So if you spend, between 1 and 5 hours a week on your social media, take time to invite new Facebook friends to like your page. Take time to search hashtags that you use. So like business of yoga, yoga teacher. Find other people who are putting out content like you are and go and manually follow them. Look at their photos, comment. So it's a lot more work, but I think that actually engaging as a person can get you a lot further in the long run than it'll get you to just like have somebody following you and then your program like unfollowing people to keep your follow-unfollow ratio or your follow-followers ratio high. I think that it's important to, once again, look at what your intention is with your social media. And if it's genuinely to grow your business, it should be about finding cool people online who are doing stuff that's similar to what you're doing and that you're actually interested in. So that's the way that I like to think about that. So a couple points just to go over again is finding your authentic voice on social media. So once you figured out what platforms you're going to use, like we talked about on last week's episode, it's really about finding your voice, knowing that it might be awkward at first and that it might take, a couple posts before you kind of figure out what's going to work for you. And with this, writing as though you're speaking. So I try to think about, okay, when I post something, how would I give people like the 5-second pitch on what this episode's about? Can I write exactly that? Because then it sounds like I'm talking. And especially with something like a podcast, you guys hear me talk constantly. You know what I sound like when I talk. You know what my voice is like. So if I turn around and write differently on social media, it doesn't really feel like it's me. And I know that it can be really weird. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I've been through that before. And I found that through both the podcasts that I host, so with The World Wanderers, which I co-host with my boyfriend Ryan, and with MBOM, I run both the social media accounts, and The World Wanderers has, grown quite quickly, and we post quite regularly there, and it's easy to post stuff because it's travel, and I've gone back and forth between putting like cute little comments and telling stories, and I've kind of gone to finding a balance, like what would I post on my personal account? Does this stand behind our brand? Like, is it something that somebody who listens to us could be like, yes, this is something they would say. And then once it's passed that test, I go ahead and post it. It's kind of the same with MBOM. It's looking at like, how does this create value for my followers? How does this teach them something about their business as a yoga teacher? How does it interest them as a yoga teacher? And I think that that's something you should always consider is, are my followers going to think this is interesting? Because I don't run just a yoga account. I don't just post a bunch of photos of poses and put like quotes with them. Occasionally, every so often, I do something if it's really inspiring like that. But you're here because you're interested in learning about business. So you follow along on my social media because you're interested in business, not just because you're interested in yoga. And that's something to consider based on what you do. Look at your business, look at why people like your business, look at what you're trying to achieve, and decide what your authentic voice is based on that. If you're a yoga teacher who teaches at a couple different studios within a city and you really want to have a platform to kind of like showcase yourself as a teacher and to gain more followers, maybe it's sharing different poses and telling the story of that pose, or, teaching people how you would teach that. Or maybe it's simply just creating inspiration day to day. And there's no right, there's no wrong. That's why social media is so hard. If somebody could just write a guidebook to doing well on Instagram, it would be so much easier, but it's so individual. It's really got to be about who you are, what you're talking about, what your mission is, what your goal is. And I think that you'll find if you go on to platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it's clear that you're a real person behind there. You're gaining organic followers. You're engaging with your audience. You're keeping them interested with the content you're posting. I think you'll find that you'll be really successful with social media. And so that's not to say that you can't boost posts, that you can't pay a little bit of money to have more people see it. I don't think there's anything disingenuous or unauthentic about that at all. I think that you can still maintain authenticity while trying to grow your following organically. So, for example, with Facebook advertising, and I mean, Facebook advertising is a whole nother beast in of itself that I definitely have not mastered, but you can go on there and you can actually create your ideal audience. So looking at who your avatar is and, setting it so that your posts reach those people. And that's a great way to find people organically, because then your stuff pops up on their newsfeed and they can choose whether or not to like it or not. And so just another thing to consider with that, it's not like, if I pay for anything, I'm unauthentic. It's just how you're doing it. Buying a bunch of followers is not an authentic way to build a following. Whereas, setting up a strategic Facebook advertisement that's going to go towards somebody who might genuinely pick up what you're putting down or be interested in your offering is definitely an authentic way to go about your social media. So I'm going to end the episode here. If anyone has any questions about anything we've talked about or is feeling still uncertain on how to create their authentic voice on social media, you can definitely reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. You can find all the show notes and links for this episode at www.mbomyoga.com. And speaking of social media, you can join me online on Facebook and Instagram at Mastering the Business of Yoga. As always, thanks so much for listening, and namaste.